Hi, this is Doug. This is another video in the series of the BigCommerce data import process, and this deals with the revision 4 of the spreadsheet. So hopefully you've completed revision 3, or else this won't make any sense whatsoever. Alright, so revision 4 concentrates mostly on the final steps and processes for cleaning up the product descriptions and creating the product name fields. So this is the final series of kind of nightmare steps before we get to the final bits for actually getting the spreadsheet into the format for importing. Okay, now since every vendor is going to be different, how many steps are going to be involved in cleaning up the descriptions is hard to say. Some of it's an automated process, some of it's a semi-automated process, and some of it is just plain old trench warfare. The more products you have and the more erratic the vendor, the more complicated the process is going to be. REV is probably a good example here because they're kind of middle of the road, and a lot of it's automated and a lot of it's a little bit of trench warfare. Now, because you're going to be running so many programs, and it'll get way too confusing, what we usually do is we're going to split this up and create a worksheet in REV4 here that's going to be primarily for just dealing with modifying the descriptions, all the steps involved, and creating the product names, and then we'll splice that information back in later because it gets too unwieldy with all of these columns of information that we really don't need in the product description process. So we go ahead and create a tab here. According to our style guide, we call this desk mod. All right. And then we copy everything from our master worksheet there. In this case, it's just 100. Paste it in here. Do our usual freeze pane so we don't confuse things. All right. And now we can take out all the things that are not going to be necessary for the description, modification, and the product names. So going through here, let's see here. We're not going to need image file names. So we can take those out. Spec PDF names and all the attributes, we're going to need those. We're going to need dimming. We're not going to need product weight, price, depth, or the UPC. We can clobber those. Now we can rearrange the order of this because it'll make more sense when we run the HTML wrapper program. Clean that bit out. We're not going to need categories here. Keep in mind we're keeping all of those columns in that master worksheet, so we don't need them specifically here. Leave concat and SKU because you're going to probably need those for matching. And then our final bit here is drag the description column to the end and close and delete that blank column. So now we've got some wiggle room. We've streamlined all this a little bit, and now is a good time to go ahead and save the spreadsheet. Okay, once we've got product descriptions at the end here, if you haven't already, named it orig for original, so you can tell it from the other ones. And our process here is, of course, to copy the last column in the process to a new column, adjust its name so we can tell it from the other ones, and do the process that we need on that, and rinse and repeat. That way we see the whole progression of where we started, what the end result is. So if and or when we follow something up, we can undo it without having to erase a whole bunch of work. So this one is going to be mixed. All right. If you haven't already changed the product descriptions to all uppercase, do so now. At this point, we go ahead and we run the description change mix case list program. And what this will do is going to do is it's going to look at the descriptions word by word. It's going to isolate certain things like part numbers, SKUs, things like the attributes like lumens, wattage, voltage, all those things will be left uppercase. It will change everything else to proper case. Unless there's an exception, there's a word list that the program also runs with, which must be in your temp directory, or else the program will fail when it goes to run. And this is the mixed case word list. This is particular to certain lines of products, and a lot of times to particular manufacturers. So we'll have to create a word list, more than likely for lighting, electrical parts, etc., and for different manufacturers. And these are special words or abbreviations that may be unique to this particular vendor that we want in uppercase. And that requires you to have to scroll around back and forth and look for some of these things. And possibly run the mixed case program a few times until you get this list updated and run the program and everything's in the case that you want. If you just got a couple of weird stragglers, it doesn't make sense to just add them to the mixed case word list. Sometimes you just do a find and replace. That's all this is supposed to do, is save us the trouble of having to find and replace on who knows how many thousands of instances of 29 different variations of word abbreviations, which would be ugly. Anyway, so program is pretty simple to work with. We do our usual run and debug, tell it which column the description's in. We don't want to do the original, we want to do M, the copy. We do that, and we should see a miracle happen, and it happens pretty quick. All right, now this gets us much closer to where we want the descriptions to be. There's an awful lot of going back and forth and manually eyeballing this stuff as you go through each step in the process, because there's going to be things you don't catch. Some of them are minor and you don't feel like fixing. Some of them are fairly major, pretty obvious, and you will have to fix. Things that you'll be looking for are straggler letters at the end of the column that for some strange reason are there and shouldn't be there. Things that you wanted uppercase that didn't get made uppercase. Maybe some punctuations that got stripped out. Luckily in this case everything came out pretty good here. There may be cases where there's been too much abbreviating done, and then we've got a special program for reversing abbreviations, which we won't discuss in this video, but we have it. Sometimes you have to do an awful lot of just trench warfare with find and replace, which is no fun on certain vendors, but this, at least for this batch of 100, this came out pretty clean. There is one thing now, of course, unique to REV that still needs to be fixed up before we get any further. Most of the description came out just fine, with the exception, of course, that we still have problems with these lumens. We can't have floating point lumens. That is something dot 3, dot 5, dot 6, etc., etc. These need to be whole numbers. So, this is something that is unique to REV, but there might be similar type of situations. We've got a program that handles this variety of problem, where we create a listing of, as we saw here in lumens, what a lumen number is probably now and what we want it to be. So we can think of this as a normal dictionary with a key value pair. Alright, so we've got a program in here that will read every word, will try and match up in a dictionary that lumen 14533.3. If it finds a match, it'll find the value that it should be, and it'll substitute it. So let's run that real quick. So the program that we're going to want to employ for this trick is called Description Replace Words and Abbreviations. And it's used for a variety of things. We just use this for a little bit of trickery. What I essentially did here is I copied these two columns onto a blank worksheet, did a file save as to create a CSV file, and dumped it into the dictionary that this program uses. The result looks like this: a key value pair. The program will look up for these values. If it finds a match, it'll write that in its place. as I create new dictionaries, we tend to, they have to all be, the program will look for the one that's called a replace words dict. I add this uppercase here at the end as we come out with new dictionaries that are particular to a particular use and a particular vendor. So, of course, this will not work right until this is the dictionary for REV lumens. As soon as I take the REV lumens part out, so it's the replace words dictionary, now the program will use that dictionary. All right, so we'll go ahead and do that. Best that just in case this fouls up and we have to do it again another way, we make a copy of mixed, change that, add to the end of mixed, lumfix, so we know that, okay, this is the variation where we fixed the lumens problem. Okay, let's go ahead and run that program. Hopefully it finds our dictionary. If it doesn't, it will foul up and crash. All right, in most cases, these selections are reversing the order. So abbreviate, let's see here, taking a look at what these selections mean are it changes the order of operations. So abbreviate means that it sees this is the key and here, and that's the value. So if it finds 629.6, it replaces it with 630. If you do expand, it does the reverse, which is if it finds 630, it will replace it with 629.6. This is used for other purposes. And substitute essentially does the same thing as abbreviate. So anyway, so that's what we're going to do, and we go ahead and select 1 or 3, either one will do. Hit enter, tell it the column, which is N in this case, the mixed case lumfix, hit enter, and miraculously, bingo, bango, bongo, now all the lumens are fixed and replaced with their rounded numbers. And now that will end up being the final description that's going to be used in the HTML wrapper, which we'll get to in a moment, and also be used for the names. Okay, since that process has been successful, now we will go ahead into the next one. As we said, this column will become the final full product description, the one that we're going to put the HTML wrapper around. It's all cleaned up and looks pretty good. Sometimes there's additional steps that you need to do, but as you can see, we've got a variety of tools like the substitution program to fix up little weird glitches like the lumens. So we go ahead and copy that. All right. Now we're going to work on the parts that will become the product name column. So okay, we'll add to this name, this will be lumfix. This will be where we run the truncate program to shorten up the words. So this will be truncate 60. For this step, we run the program description shortened to XX number of characters. And we go ahead and run that. And enter in our column O. And this is completely, whoops, not 0. This program is completely adjustable. 60 characters seems to be the sweet spot for product descriptions. Keep in mind it's going to try and roll it back to the nearest complete word. So it might be 55, 52 characters, it might be 65 characters, but it tries to get, plus or minus about 7 characters one way or the other, and that seems to be about right for these. So there might be special cases where we deviate, but 60 seems to be good. So we hit that, and if you have a program freeze like this, it probably means that the spreadsheet needs to be saved. So just stop the program, click Save on the spreadsheet, and start the program again. Okay, so we saved Excel, we're running the program again. This time, program didn't fail. Okay, so as we can see here, this new column is very, very different from the previous one in N. We see that it has truncated things down so far. If it's done its job properly and there's nothing too ugly, there won't be any straggler carries. Now keep in mind that sometimes there's things on the end of the descriptions that are in braces. It has a nasty habit of sometimes it'll chop half the word that was in the brace because it's because of the way it's designed. So sometimes there's other programs you have to run, like in this case we have a remove last character from end. We have a remove entry from end where you can scroll through and see if you see a pattern like a bracket in a word. You can put that in the entry, hit enter, and it'll find those and remove those out to clean it up and tighten it a lot more. Luckily in this case we don't have any of those cleanups to do, so we can go to the next step. So in the next step we are going to construct the product name, which is a combination of the product SKU and this truncated to 60 product description. The formula is something that looks kind of like that, right? The first column, a space in the second column, we hit enter, and we get our new descriptions, and we can go ahead and fill that down all the way. Eyeball it to make sure that something really weird didn't happen and makes it unreadable. And we may want to at some point experiment with 2 spaces between the SKU and the description. It looks differently when it's actually in the website though. Okay, and for our last bit on this, we will run the HTML wrapper. Okay, so we said this one here is going to be our final that's used for the product description. Right, the other bits here were just for constructing the product name, which we now have done. So we're going to copy this over to the end and rename this, add an HTML to it so we know that this is the HTML section. Then we run our wonderful little program here, which will splice in all the information. You might want to hide these columns temporarily, so it's just easier to maneuver about in this. We'll hide these. That way we've got all the columns we need to install in the program in front of us. So we will go ahead and run this program. And this is the description HTML plus bullet points and PDF links program. So it'll take the description and add the HTML wrapper around it and embed the bullet points and the links for the spec sheets and PDFs. Alright, so we're going to use column Q as the description base. Lumens, we're not going to use the old lumens, C, because that's got the floating point. We're going to use new, which is D. Wattage is E. Voltage is F. See how much easier this is when you group all the things together and in order. Color temperature is G. H is CRI. I is the dimming information. If the spec sheet exists, I knew I did this out of order. Yes, it exists. Okay, so spec sheet is K. Install guide exists. Install is J. And oops, Y and J. And then we hit enter. Web dev. This is REV, so the web dev folder in the web dev server is REV in uppercase. And we hit that. And as you can see here, the HTML wrapper has done its job and made this wonderful behemoth. At this point we will stop this part of the thing. This is revision 4. We do a final save and do a save as revision 5, where we will continue on the next step. So remember, save REV4 first, and then do a save as and create a copy of REV4 to REV5 to take it from there. And that will complete this section of the process. Thank you.